It's all about worship and to whom you worship, Volume 2, A Journey Experience Through the Bible. It was after being in slavery for 400 years in Egypt that our journey take us to experience the deliverance of the children of Israel. The Pharaoh that knew Joseph and all that generation died, but the children of Israel were fruitful, increased abundantly, multiplied, and grew exceedingly mighty. The land was filled with the children of Israel. Then arose a new Pharaoh over Egypt, who did not know Joseph or the people of Israel, so he dealt with them shrewdly. God see the oppression of his people, he hear their cry, and he is now about to fulfill his word by coming down to deliver his people out of the hand of the Egyptians and deliver them from their many gods that the Egyptians worshipped. He is coming down to take them to a land that is good, large, and a land flowing with milk and honey, that is a place called Canaan. Our journey will take us to experience the presence of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Our journey will lead us to experience God's character, his mercy, and his love for us, not excluding being also a God of judgment. We will be in the midst of a great multitude of people experiencing the same events with them, such as leaving the land of Egypt and meeting the Lord in the wilderness. So now, let us begin. Introduction. Slavery to freedom. All the persons who went with Jacob to Egypt, those who came from his body, besides Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. The sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2 persons. Therefore, all the persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70. Genesis 46 verse 26. Jacob and his family went to Egypt during a severe famine, a severe food shortage. Joseph was already in Egypt, because his brothers sold him to the Midianites, who in turn sold him to Potiphar in Egypt, and he became a slave. However, the Lord God had other plans for Joseph. While Joseph's brothers meant it for evil, the Lord meant it for good, in order to bring about everything that would happen up to the time the Israelites' entrance into Egypt. The Lord allowed Joseph's brothers to do what they did, so that Joseph would already be in Egypt to save many people alive during this 7-year severe famine that was to come over all the earth. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. The Lord had given him the spirit of discernment and the interpretation of dreams. Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams concerning the coming famine and gave him advice on how to survive through it. He advised Pharaoh to select a discerning and wise man, set him over the land of Egypt, and to appoint officers over the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years. He suggests to Pharaoh to gather all the food of those good years that were coming and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh to keep food in the cities. The food would be reserved for the land for the 7 years of famine, which would be in the land of Egypt, that the land may not perish during the famine. The advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. Therefore, Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You should be over my house, and all my people will be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you." Pharaoh took his signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. He clothed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in the 2nd chariot, which he had, and the Egyptians cried out before him, "Bow the knee." It was then that Pharaoh set Joseph as governor over all the land of Egypt. Genesis 41 verses 33 to 43. Joseph was in the house of his master the Egyptian. He interpreted Pharaoh's dreams because Pharaoh's magicians could not explain the dreams, for the dreams were from God. God had shown Pharaoh what he was about to do. He showed Pharaoh that there would be 7 years of great plenty to come throughout all the land of Egypt, but after them, 7 years of severe famine will arise, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine would deplete the land. Genesis 41 verses 28 to 30. The Egyptian master saw that the Lord was with Joseph and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. Therefore, Joseph found favor in his sight, and served him. He made Joseph overseer of his house, and all that he had he put under his authority. He became ruler over Pharaoh's house, and all his people were ruled according to his word. Only concerning the throne was Pharaoh greater than he was. He set Joseph as governor over all the land of Egypt, and during the famine, he sold to all the people of the land. Genesis 39 verses 1 to 5, 41:40, 41. Joseph was in charge of opening all the storehouses. He sold to the Egyptians, and every country came to the land of Egypt to buy grain, because the famine was severe in all the lands. Genesis 41 verses 56 to 57. Joseph revealed himself to his brothers. He had them go to their father in Canaan, that he and his household may come down to Egypt. They would dwell in the land of Goshen, be near to him, and they would have plenty of grain to eat during the food shortage. Jacob and his family did so. They journeyed to Egypt and settled in the land of Goshen, for Pharaoh gave the children of Israel the best of the land. They became fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied, and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Then Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation, and a new king over Egypt, who did not know Joseph, feared the multitude of people. He feared that one day the Hebrews might join their enemies and fight against them and go up out of the land. Therefore, the new Pharaoh and the Egyptians set taskmasters over the children of Israel to afflict them with their burdens. Exodus 1 verse 2, 6 to 11, Genesis 15 verses 13 and 14. The Hebrews were in the land of Egypt for 430 years. As the Lord had spoken to Abraham generations earlier that his descendants would be strangers in a foreign land that was not theirs, would serve them, and be afflicted by them 400 years. The Lord also promised that he would judge that nation, and afterward the children of Israel would come out with great possessions. Genesis 50 verse 24. Birth of Moses. Moses' parents were from the tribe of Levi. He was born to Jochebed and Amram. His brother was Aaron, and his sister was Miriam. Moses was born during the time 1527 BC, when Pharaoh King Thutmose I in 1539 to 1514 BC, ordered his people to kill every male child born to the Hebrew women by casting them into the river. However, because Pharaoh could not count on the midwives to kill the male children on the birth stools of the Hebrew women, for they feared the Lord, therefore he ordered his people to drown them. To save her son from the Egyptian authorities, Jochebed hid him for 3 months, for she saw that he was a beautiful child. When she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. Miriam, the baby's sister, stood far off to know what would be done to him. Exodus 6 verse 20, 2:1-4. It was God's plan that Pharaoh's daughter should find the baby, so that he would be raised as her own son and brought up in the royal court as a prince of the Egyptians. The Lord wanted the child Moses to learn the wisdom of the Egyptians and be mighty in words and deeds. Therefore, when the princess came down to bathe at the river, and as her maidens walked along the riverside, she saw the ark among the reeds and sent one of her maids to get it. When she opened the ark, she saw the child, and he was crying, and she had compassion on him. Acts 7 verses 21 and 22, Exodus 2 verses 5 and 6. The Lord was also determined that Moses should know his true family, therefore, he was brought up in his father's house for 3 months. When the Pharaoh's daughter found him along the river bank, his sister Miriam said to her, "Should I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." Therefore, Miriam went to get their mother, and she took the child, nursed him, and received wages for caring for her own son. When his nursing period was over, and the child grew, his mother brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. Pharaoh's daughter called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." She took him away, adopted him, and brought him up as her own son. Nevertheless, Moses was a Hebrew in heart. Acts 7 verse 21, Exodus 2 verses 7 to 10. Moses flee from the face of Pharaoh. As time passed and Moses became a grown man, he went to his brethren and looked at their burdens. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren. He killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. The next day he went out, saw one of his own brethren beating another Hebrew brother, and said to the one beating the other, "Why are you striking your companion?" The man said, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses feared and said, "Surely this thing is known." Pharaoh did hear of this matter and sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. Exodus 2 verses 11 to 15. Reuel, who was also Jethro, was the priest of Midian. He had 7 daughters. While Moses was sitting down by a well, Reuel's daughters came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. Then shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock for them. When the daughters returned to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today? An Egyptian delivered us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock." They answered. The daughters of Reuel recognized Moses as an Egyptian because, to them, a Hebrew would not be dressed in Egyptian royal clothing. Therefore, they considered him an Egyptian. Reuel said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why is it that you have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread." Exodus 2 verses 16 to 20. Moses accepted the invitation of Reuel. Reuel offered Moses a home to live with him, and Moses was content. Reuel gave his daughter, Zipporah, to Moses' wife, and she bore him a son. He called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." Exodus 2 verses 21 and 22. God remembers his covenant. Now it happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage, and they cried out, and their cry went up to God because of the oppression. The Lord God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Lord looked upon the children of Israel, and he acknowledged them. Exodus 2 verses 23 to 25. The Lord sends Moses to Pharaoh. Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, who was the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The angel of the Lord, who was a visitation of the presence of Jesus, appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, "I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn." Exodus 3 verses 1 to 3. The Lord saw that Moses turned aside to look, and God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." Moses said, "Here I am." The Lord said, "Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground." Then the Lord said, "I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Exodus 3 verses 4 to 6. The Lord said to Moses, "I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. Therefore, I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Exodus 3 verses 7 to 10. Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" The Lord said, "I will certainly be with you, and this will be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." Exodus 3 verses 11 to 12. Moses said to God, "Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they say to me, 'What is his name?' what should I say to them?" The Lord said to Moses, "I am who I am," and he said, "You shall say to the children of Israel, 'The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. Exodus 3 verses 13 to 15. The Lord assured Moses that his presence would certainly be with him. He gave Moses a sign to take to the Hebrews to show that he had sent him. Moses did the signs in the sight of the people. Therefore, the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked on their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped. Exodus 4 verses 30 and 31. Moses, like Jesus. Moses became a great leader and prophet among the people who spoke for the Lord God. In using Moses to speak for him, the Hebrew people would have victory over the Egyptians, and all this will happen with the command of the Lord. The Lord God will inflict great judgments on that land, the Egyptian people, and their gods. His presence with Moses will lead the children of Israel out of Egypt and out of slavery. The Lord came down to deliver the children of Israel out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Just like he came down to deliver the Israelites from the Egyptians and their gods, he came down to deliver us from the power of Satan. It was for this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. 1 John 3 verse 8. We have also been given a sign, behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and will call his name Emmanuel, which is translated, God with us. Isaiah 7 verse 14, Matthew 1:23. Yes, and all the prophets, from Samuel and those who follow, as many as have spoken, have also foretold these days. You are sons of the prophets, and of the covenant, which God made with our fathers, saying to Abraham, and in your seed all the families of the earth will be blessed. To you first, God, having raised up his servant Jesus, sent him to bless you, in turning away every one of you from your iniquities, from the slavery of sin. Acts 3 verses 21 to 26. Moses returned to Egypt. The Lord said to Moses in Midian, Go return to Egypt, for all the men who sought your life are dead. Moses took his wife and his sons, Gershom and Eleazar, and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Egypt. It happens, on the day the Lord spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, that the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I am the Lord, speak to Pharaoh king of Egypt all that I say to you. Moses said before the Lord, Behold, I am of uncircumcised lips, and how will Pharaoh heed me? Nevertheless, the Lord said to Moses, See, I have made you as God to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother will be your prophet. You will speak all that I command you, and Aaron your brother will tell Pharaoh to send the children of Israel out of his land, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. Nevertheless, Pharaoh will not heed you. This will be that I may lay my hand on Egypt and bring my armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, when I stretch out my hand on Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. Exodus 6 verse 29, 7:1-5. Moses and Aaron went in and spoke to Pharaoh, and said to him, The Lord said to let his people go, that they may hold a feast to him in the wilderness. However, Pharaoh mocked and said, Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go. This was the first encounter with Pharaoh since Moses had fled from him. The Lord hardens Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the people go. The Lord raised Pharaoh up for this very purpose, to show his power, that his name may be declared in all the earth, and that Pharaoh would know that there is none like the Lord God in all the earth. Exodus 9 verses 14 and 16. Thank you for listening to the introduction to the book, The Exodus, taken from the book, It's All About Worship and To Whom You Worship. The complete book in whole can be purchased on Amazon.com.